Hello, and welcome back to the Black Ordinary podcast, a monthly conversation about Black art, Black archives, and Black autonomy. My name is Kaitlyn B. Jones, and I'm your host and the proud founder of the Black Ordinary Project. The Black Ordinary Project is a multimedia platform, resource hub, and national database of community-based archives and community-based archival projects dedicated to the preservation of Black American history and culture. The Black Ordinary Podcast is one of the many ways that the Black Ordinary Project platforms Black artists, Black historians, Black archivists, Black community members, anybody Black who is doing the work to preserve the collective memories of Black America. This month, I am so excited to be in conversation with my good friend, Breon. Breon is a multidisciplinary artist who investigates the visual vocabulary of liberation through a queer Black feminist lens. Using performance, sculpture, and public installation, Breon invites audiences to examine intersectional identities and diasporic memory. Breon imagines her work as immersive invitations for the public to join in the reimagining and creation of systems that make current oppressive systems obsolete. Breon has created commissions for Target, Art Production Fund, Frieze Art Fair, and the ACLU of Southern California. Breon's performance history includes Hauser and Wirth, the Walt Disney Concert Hall, and the Watermill Center. She is an alumna of Stanford University, where she studied aeronautics and astronautics and researched aeronautical astrobiology applications. Breon is a recipient of the Crenshaw Dairy Mart Fellowship for Abolition and the Advancement of the Creative Economy and the Race Forward Fellowship for Housing, Land, and Justice. Autumn and I met through a prominent art collector in Kansas City, and since then I've been fortunate enough to collaborate with her on one of her many performance projects. I can't wait for you to hear our conversation and share her incredible work with you. If anything resonates with you, feel free to put it down in the comments below. Enjoy. So, for the first episode, I kicked off the podcast with a segment I call Extraordinarily Ordinary. And so I want to do the same for this one. So the Black Ordinary Project and the Black Ordinary Podcast, it celebrates everyday Black people whose existence is a living testament to the beauty of Black American culture and Black American history. And so I want to give you the opportunity to speak a name and tell a story of somebody that's special to you.
Yeah. My person is Bernice Robinson. I talk about Bernice Robinson a lot. She was a hairstylist, a beautician, and also an organizer, a mobilizer, an educator. She was born in South Carolina, moved to New York. That was the first time that she could vote, the first time that she lived in an integrated society. Came back to South Carolina to take care of her parents when they were getting older. And she wanted some of the same experiences that she had had in New York back home. So she went to a workshop. What's also interesting about Bernice Robinson is that her cousin was Septima Clark. So she went to the Highlander Institute, and that's one of the oldest folk schools in the country. And it was this workshop, and it was the first time that she was like breaking bread, learning alongside white folks. And they were trying to figure out, Septima Clark and her colleagues, creative ways that they could educate Black folks, teach them to read and write, to pass literacy tests, and be able to vote. So they thought that hair salons could be a great place for this work to happen. It was a place that was hidden in plain sight. So Bernice Robinson volunteered, and she was running these workshops from her beauty salon. And beauty salons were this really unique and special place, and they still are, because no one thought that this work was happening in a beauty salon. They just thought it was a place where women were going to get their hair done, to be beautified and such. It was also a place where the other businesses that worked with an individual beauty salon were typically Black owned. So suppliers, vendors, there's a lot of control that Black entrepreneurs had within beauty salons. Folks were passing her class, learning to read and write. And she didn't use curriculum that was recommended, where it would be like children's books or things like that. Instead, her approach was really human centered and worked so well because she was using text and items that adults were around all the time. So like catalogs and like canned goods in the kitchen. That's what she was using to teach literacy. Most of her students would pass. They were able to pass these literacy tests and then register to vote. And then the model actually replicated in different places in the South because it was so successful. And she's inspired so much of work that I've done, a body of work in particular called Protective Style, but also she's influenced by thinking about the powerful things that can exist in places that are often hidden in plain sight.
Hmm. Yeah. And your current studio is actually in a hair salon. Is that right?
It is. It is a working hair and nail salon. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And
Thank you.
I'm so sad I actually haven't even been there yet.
No,
As
but
many times as I've been to LA.
I have a feeling that you'll be seeing the studio soon.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to talk about how your artistic practice began. When I first found out that you studied aeronautics and astronautics, I was like, holy shit, like she's even more of a badass than I thought.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like, I was just in awe. And I think some people look at your academic studies and then they look at your practice as an artist and they view it as a pivot. But I'm interested in how you feel that your academic studies have inspired your artistic practice.
Yeah, yeah. I agree that it wasn't necessarily a pivot, but it feels like an evolution.
Hmm.
I really feel like engineering prepared me to be an artist. A lot of my work obviously is still inspired by elements of aeronautics and astronautics, and applications. I think that when you know how to build something and how to make it safe, that's definitely helpful for making
Yeah.
sculptures and some of like the larger installations that I've done. But
Yeah.
the kind of thinking that I apply to a different kind of environment now is just creating a hypothesis, testing it, and then figuring out something that might be a strong thesis. That's how I organize my work now. Whether it's a performance, whether it's a sculpture or a collage, that type of thinking is just a part of my practice to this day. I decided to be a full-time artist. It didn't really feel like a decision. So many people around me that I still look up to and that are people that I really go to when I need support, when I have questions and I'm thinking about things. They were actually naming me as an artist and saying, what you're making and what you're thinking about, this is art. And I started to internalize that and believe it, but there were just messages that I needed to communicate using tools at my disposal, which included art making. I needed to express that, and there was no other way for me to do it. So as a result, I was an artist. I didn't. There wasn't a moment where I just like woke up and necessarily made a conscious decision to label myself as an artist. It just felt like something that I couldn't ignore.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I want to get into the incredible ways that archives have been a part of your work. You have collaborated with ACLU, you made a sculptural collage of archival material, you've worked with the community of Inglewood. Can you talk about those projects? And then also, as a native Angelino, how special they are to you and how talk about, how they hit close to home.
Yeah, yeah. So posing questions to the public and making work that's either inspired by or or centers those responses, that's an approach that I use for most of my work. No matter what the medium is, that's an approach that's really important to me. So with performances, oftentimes I'm posing some kind of question to folks and collecting responses, and sometimes those responses will be a part of my body. I'll wear the responses. People will interact with those responses in a performance, and then I use the same approach for for sculptures, for some murals and work that I've done. Collaboration is such an important part of what I do. A friend and a mentor, Eric Gottesman, really, really talented artist that's based in DC. He was saying, none of us make art alone. We don't make anything alone. And I get so much inspiration, energy from collaborating. And I've been privileged to be able to collaborate with some really talented, forward-thinking, sometimes futurist partners. It's been nice that I've been able to work with institutions and folks and collectives like that. So for the ACLU project, this was a part of the ACLU of Southern California's 100th anniversary. And they wanted work that could travel and be a part of these different ways that they were activating and celebrating their anniversary throughout the year. And I was really interested in the ACLU of Southern California's archives because their newsletters that they've been sending for decades, they have all of those within their archives, their physical archives, and some of them are also digitized as well, at their headquarters here. So as I was going through these different images and headlines, I thought that it was such a wonderful timeline of the work that they've done and that they're continuing to do. And it was also interesting where you would see examples of history repeating itself. And I knew that I didn't want to show that kind of timeline in a linear way. I wanted it to be able to bend and for like different figures throughout history to be within proximity to each
Mm.
other.
Mm.
They're like old images of Upton Sinclair and like these calls to action from like the history of unions and labor organizing here, integration. You see all of this in their archive. So I put all of these together on a structure where there's a 1 and 2 zeros. And all of these images wrap around the inside. They're on all of the faces so that I really wanted folks to feel like they could get up close and personal
Mhm.
with the archives and with the structure, this like reimagined kind of timeline. That was really fun to do. And I think that they were happy with it. I was glad that I was able to be a part of ACLU celebrating a really important milestone like that.
Yeah. How did you ever get to see people really interacting with the work in that way? And how long was it up? And where was it? I mean, I've seen pictures, but where was it installed? Yeah.
Yeah, it was in a lot of places. One place in particular where it was really great to see people of all ages interacting with it was at the Beehive, which is in South Central. But there was like a full day where different artists were participating in this celebration of their 100 years in different ways. So there was like a sound bath. There was like some oral storytelling. So this was up all this is one of the places that the sculpture was, but people were able to take in this entire day of like healing and joy and also just like walk around and see pictures of like some people that they remembered, some folks they may have worked with, and folks that are ancestors now. They were able to experience all of that within one day in one place.
That's awesome. There's this interesting thing, for lack of a better word, that happens when archival material is then turned into a piece of artwork, because then that artwork itself then becomes archival material. Can you kind of talk about this like inception that happens in your work? Because in performance as well, like you were taking, or in any of your work, really, like you said, you work a lot with the community and you take in a lot of community responses to inform the work that you do and the art that you make. Um, what is that process of like embodying these responses to then kind of create this embodied archive, but then also a physical archive of what these people, of the experiences that these people have shared with you?
I think it's something that's very familiar because we do it on our own all the time. Like when we think about our personal archives, and not just limiting that to like images, but documents, jewelry, like, or even like articles of clothing that we wear that might be like passed down or a part of your own archive as you're living and breathing. I think oftentimes we'll like pull from different places and embody that when it becomes a part of our everyday life. If it's from being surrounded by it, like in the place that you live or work, or what you decide to wear, I think that happens all the time. Like archives become embodied and other people get to interact with it. And then the archive grows and grows. I just kind of compress that with performance. Like it just happens a lot. The cycle might be quicker. But I think it's similar to what we do intuitively.
And I think Black people too, I'm thinking a lot about, and I've just, since it's been released, Cowboy Carter. Like I just think a lot
Mm,
about how Black artists particularly have never, like you said, made art alone, right? Like we've always taken the influences and the experiences that we've either heard about, whether through oral history or through personal experiences, and the way that Beyonce was able to kind of take these audio archives and kind of flip them on their head or use them and feature them. It's really incredible. And I think that Black creativity is this like, um, you talked about circular, like things happening, like history repeating itself. I think that Black creativity is one of those things that is incredibly circular. And it's really beautiful to watch the way that you work, and to know that like, you are part of that canon as well.
oh, I appreciate that. But that's such an excellent reference that I think we're also accustomed to. The way that the personal art, the invitation to the personal archive through music and the storytelling that
Hmm.
happens through music,
Hmm.
especially, I mean, all music is Black music, but especially, like I'm thinking about rap, G-Funk in particular, and P-Funk before that. So the act of crate digging, right? I think it's really
Hmm.
interesting that the sound that developed in LA, we know that that came from like Dre, Ice Cube going through their parents' records and sampling Parliament Funkadelic, you know? And even there and I think about this a lot because I use a lot of music and work with musicians for performances and some of the video installations.
Hmm.
And for one performance, um, the question, it always starts with the question. I was asking people, what do you hope never changes about Inglewood? And a lot of my work is subversive. I think that art making is subversive. Like that's the other reason that like all art is political, but it was for a performance that took place at a new development in Inglewood. I worked with Rick Garzone Residency Art Gallery, and it was the opening of this new location that also happens to be a part of the complex where SoFi Stadium is. So inevitably, Inglewood is already changing and will change because of the place where this performance was going to take place, the soil it was going to be on.
Yeah.
But I was thinking of like, how can this still be an intervention and a reminder despite the reality? Like, how can this be an opportunity for the archive to live, to breathe, to have sound? So the music, I worked with the Grant AME Church Choir. You've been to Grant AME for rehearsals.
I have.
The Black Fist Brass Band, who you also know really
Yes.
well, that's always playing behind me. And the score started with Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. And after they sang it, they repeated the line, swing down, sweet chariot, stop and let me ride, which is obviously a part of a Parliament Funkadelic song that was then sampled for a G-Funk song. So we were able to like to use all of these sounds and to travel from slavery to present day with a consistent sound that I knew everybody in the audience would recognize.
Right. So it becomes this multi-generational thing. That's really awesome.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's where the conversation between the generations is. Exactly.
We'll be right back after a short break. And we're back. How, like timeline wise, how close was that performance to the mural that you did for Inglewood, like the community mural?
Okay. That performance was 2023.
Okay.
I believe that was 2023. The mural was, I think it was revealed in like February of 2023.
Okay.
But I had been working on the mural for like a couple of years before that.
Yeah. And what was that like from start to finish? Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a public art project that's in Inglewood, at the newest Target that's on La Brea. And again, it was another collaboration, and it was another invitation that that was basically inviting folks in the community this time to share images. So folks in Inglewood and South Central were invited to share images of a memory that is significant to them in that region. Um, but different small businesses in Inglewood were set up as stations where folks could come and bring their image, but get it digitized for free. And that's really important to me. And it's something that I continue to do. I was able to collaborate with Black Image Center last year for a similar type of piece, multidisciplinary piece, where we presented the same kind of invitation to folks, but this time in Santa Monica, where folks were asked to just share whatever memory they have of Santa Monica and any kind of family image so that they can have it digitized, be empowered to create and preserve their own archives. But we also had portraits that people could take with their family, chosen family, whatever kind of generations. Like they just brought them to Calvary Baptist Church, which is where the piece was. It's one of the oldest Black churches in Santa Monica, and I just think it's so important for folks to be able to know that archiving is something that we've been doing on our own and we can continue to do. So institutions and their archives are really important too, art institutions, but we need to be empowered to archive on our own and also to empower some of our community institutions to archive as well. A lot of the images that I used for the Target mural came from the Grant AME Church archives. And some of the oldest pictures in that mural that are collaged together, yeah, over 100 years old. Yeah, they're images from the early 1920s. But I collected all of these images, and then what was really important was I love being able to put ancestors and folks that are still living close to each other. I think that's what is really special about collaging. And I wanted it to be clear that like the joy that comes in everyday life in Inglewood is something that exists, but also something that needs to be protected. So some of the ancestors are positioned as like protecting the moments of everyday life that you see in the collage. And the photographs are everything from like concerts at the church. There's an image I really like of some little girls using chalk like on the sidewalk, and I'm pretty sure it was like on Market Street. That's where the image was taken. But I just think it's so important to see what existed before we were here
Right.
when we
Right.
think about and create what's going to live past us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you brought up church archives because I think a lot about the work that I'm trying to do like with this platform and creating like this audio visual archive like podcast wise. But I think too as like a queer person, sometimes it can be difficult for me to um remove like the religious aspect out of like working with churches and
Yeah.
you know and I'm just like being really honest here and
Yeah.
I've had to do like my own like reconciliation with the relationship that I have with religion, and I think that a lot of younger generations of Black people are removing themselves from the church.
Yeah.
I read an incredible book, The Day God Saw Me as Black. Oh my God, what is that author's name? it's going to drive me crazy that I can't remember it off the top of my head. Um,
The
but when I find
day
it,
God saw me as Black.
yeah.
D. Danielle Thomas?
Yes,
Okay.
that's who it is.
Okay.
And I listened to it on audiobook. And first of all, she's hilarious. But she is also like this incredible Black woman who is just she's a scholar, a biblical scholar, and she really breaks
Oh.
down the Bible in a way that shifts the focus away from maybe the she talks about the harm that the Black church has done to queer people and marginalized groups, but she talks about it in a way that made me realize that like the blame and the shame that I have been made to feel by some of the Black church is actually just white supremacy. like,
Yes.
like,
Yes. Absolutely.
like
Absolutely.
like
Yeah.
it's not the Black church at all. It's the ways that white supremacy has infected the Black church and the way the Black church
Yes.
functions. And so I
Yes.
think that as I'm going forward and I'm thinking a lot more about like what it means to preserve these community archives, I'm so glad that you brought up the Black church and the fact that the Black church is an archive in itself, because the Black
Yeah.
church is so central to the way that Black communities have organized throughout the years. So not just beauty salons, but also the way that like churches and pulpits were places where Black people gathered in plain sight to organize.
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing that
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you named that. Absolutely. Because I I have had the same journey of reconciliation that I'm still on
Hmm.
with my relationship with religion and particularly the Black church.
Hmm.
And like, so what helps me is with anything that is hard for me to wrap my mind around, it helps when I can name what it is.
Hmm.
So being able to say like, yes, this is internalized white supremacy.
Hmm.
So much of the harm that has been done and that continues to be done within the Black church. Um, but what the irony, I think, is that I believe that the Black church and Black religion is intrinsically queer
Yes.
because
Yes. You need to read the book because she definitely talks about that. Yes.
I can't wait to read this.
It's queer and it's spiritual and it's got hoodoo all up in there. You know, like why do you think we eat black eyed peas, greens
and
and cornbread?
greens.
That's a
Watch
ritual.
night service.
That's a ritual.
And creating a pathway, creating an entire institution as an alternative to what was harmful and would not let you in, and imagining something that never existed before, yet making it a reality, and creating a new standard. Well, the tricky part is the fact that like a new standard was created to judge people against, like creating this as like normal and like that's the problem. But the origin of defying a standard that existed and creating a way of being around what you imagine.
Yeah.
That's very queer to me.
Yes. So thank you for that detour.
Thank you for any book you recommend. I am always adding it to my list, so I can't wait to read this. The Day God Saw Me as Black. Yes.
Yes. And I do recommend the audiobook. I mean, read it, yes, buy it, yes, but the audiobook, she reads it herself. And so
I love that.
it's just beautiful to like hear the way that a Black woman is just like thinking about these things and then hear her inflection and then like just things that you can't get like just by reading it on your own. So
Yeah.
totally definitely recommend, highly recommend. So you collaborate or you have collaborated with different political and social justice organizations, Plan C, Feminist for Freedoms. That's just to name a few. I know there's been so many more. And I know, and maybe many of our listeners or viewers know, that art plays a vital role in pushing these liberatory movements forward. But I think some people are still confused as to why art is so dangerous to oligarchy, to fascism, like why artists are one of the first groups to be attacked when people are trying to oppress more than they already have. And so, can you speak to why art is so dangerous, particularly during this time? Like, what is it that makes artists trouble and good trouble?
Good trouble. Yeah. John Lewis, good trouble.
Yeah.
Artists are dangerous because we create a visual language for a way of being that doesn't exist. And that can be intimidating. and it's hard to contain or control.
Mhm.
So we have the ability to, and also because we're so decentralized, I think that that's also intimidating to fascism. Um, but we create a shared language that invites people into finding a way to plug in for alternatives to what is not working.
Mhm.
And that can't be controlled, because even if the individual is gone, what we've created already exists and has taken root. Um, and I think what I see as my role is participating in and pushing narrative change. So when I believe that everybody has a role in the movement, right? So we have researchers, we have our policymakers, we have our organizers. When folks create the framework, when they create whatever the vision is, some people have to kind of show what that looks and feels like so that the narrative can catch up, so that rhetoric can catch up. And that's what artists do, and that's what I see as my role. That's what I take really seriously.
Mm. And doing a great job at it, let me just say.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
We'll be right back after a short break. And we're back. The next segment, I did not tell you about beforehand because I wanted you to be surprised. You may have heard it in the first episode, but it's the rapid fire buzzwords.
Okay, the word association, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm going to read off some words, and I just want you to say the first 2 or 3 words that come to mind, or a phrase that comes to mind when you hear the word.
Okay.
All right.
Word or phrase, cool. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Art.
Irresistible.
Archives.
Essential.
Autonomy.
Freedom.
Los Angeles.
Home.
Black women.
Everything.
Community.
Medicine.
Collective memory.
Flowing through all of us.
Home.
Good smelling food.
Esoterica.
Nearby.
Liberation.
Reality.
Feminist.
All of us.
Politics.
Sometimes a distraction.
Hope.
Ever present.
I love you so much. Oh my God. But now, okay, because we haven't mentioned Esoterica since right now, I would love for you to share, what is Esoterica? Where is it? Where did it come from? Please.
Yeah. Esoterica is the planet that inspires all of my artwork. My performances are rituals and ceremonies that come from Esoterica. And the objects that I have, objects that I make, they contain wormholes that are portals to Esoterica. Esoterica is 300 light years from Inglewood, and it's where ancestors go after they're on planet Earth. So we call it dying in English, but they're really just going on to this other planet where we still communicate with them through these wormholes that exist in objects, and also through participating in these rituals and in these ceremonies. It came from a couple of places. I've always been interested in speculative fiction. I love how Adrienne Marie Brown says that organizing is science fiction. And I really believe that, because, and I think it's the same with art making. Like, I'm imagining a reality that may not exist now, yet I'm saying that it's not something that's far away. It's not then or there, like physically, and when it comes to time, it's not something that isn't nearby. I'm saying that there are Like there are ways that we transcend time and place. And this is something that you can access wherever you might be physically. And I believe that's why I think that Esoterica is nearby. Despite traveling there, um, the distance would be, light in a year, 300 of those. That's how far away it is. But I think it's something that we get to access now because I think people have been doing that, especially Black folks. I think we've always accessed other realms, even though we might occupy a certain time and a certain space. I think we've been doing that. And I think Esoterica is one of those realms. Um, it first came from a talk. I was on a panel with Hank Willis Thomas, and there's this collective called the Wide Awakes, and everybody has a Wide Awakes name. So, and these names could be everything from like Mr. Beautiful to like Woo Woo or like Rainbow Child. It could be anything. And I didn't have a Wide Awake name. So Hank said, like, what do you think you're called to do? What are you good at? While we were on this panel. And I said, I think I'm good at and I really enjoy making esoteric ideas easy to understand. And he said, okay, your name's going to be Esoterica. And I loved how it sounded.
Yeah.
I loved how it sounded. And there are these
Yeah.
things that like sometimes I'll hear or see, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it's this way with artists, with curators. Like you see something and you just kind of put it on a shelf and
Mm-hmm.
know that it's going to show up on the mood board for something later on, right?
Yep. Yep.
So we were getting ready for this performance, Don't Use Me, and I love rehearsal space. That's a really important space to me. And it's a part of like one of my favorite parts of making art. So we were rehearsing and it was like me and the dancers, the band, and like the four white guys that were carrying me
Mm-hmm.
in
Beautiful
this
image, by the way. If you
palanquin.
have not like seen
Thank
like,
you.
video clips or images of that, please go find it.
I appreciate it.
Such great imagery. Like when I need to just like feel something.
Yeah. It's bookmarked. Use it.
Yes.
Use it. So we're rehearsing, and I was just trying to describe like the moves were right. We had all the cues, everything sounded good, but I was just trying to describe like what to embody. Like we were at the part where you can start to have fun with it,
Mhm.
and I said, hey, we're coming from another planet to talk about pay equity. Like that's what's more important, where we're coming from and how we're just coming from a place in a time where this is already a reality. So it's like, come up with a name for your character. This is what, as the planet looks and feels like. And folks started naming themselves. And we were saying like, okay, well, what's the name of the planet that folks are coming from? And I said, it's called Planet Esoterica. It it felt like it made sense. And it's been a nice container for my work
Yeah.
since then.
Can you talk about when you are asking community members to um, contribute to these open calls that you have? They're usually just like posted through social media. You ask people to um, submit a response, and sometimes they're even like in person. Like you have like a handheld telephone where they can deliver messages either to or from Esoterica or to you directly. Can you talk about how you are inspiring people to do that? Like what is it that you do that makes people feel so comfortable to like share these intimate moments with you? Because I think that's really incredible, a really incredible part of what makes your work so awesome.
Mm, thank you. Comfort is really important. I don't think we can be honest if we're not comfortable, if we aren't safe, if we aren't. And I think I try to create an environment that is as comfortable as possible for the user. That's really important.
Yeah.
Be it a physical space, if it's like a digital space, um, anonymity helps a lot.
Yeah.
There's an Esoterica hotline. That's a phone number that folks like call or text, and sometimes these calls, it really it's informed by call and response. Like another way that this is informed by the Black church.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sometimes the call exists through posters that will be in small businesses. So it might be something that you pass when you're getting like your coffee from Sip and Sonder in the morning.
I
I think
cannot wait
those
to try that, by the way.
Yes,
Cannot
another
wait to
place that
visit.
we're going when
Yes.
you're in town. Shout out to Sip and Sonder. But it's like when you're already going to a place that's familiar,
hmm
that's like a part of your routine. I think when you just like drop in an invitation to respond to a call in a place that already exists, um, there's like a level of safety that's kind of built in, which is why I love partnering with places like Sip and Sonder.
Yeah. Can you talk about your current project, if you want to, and share a little bit about your most recent inspiration?
Yeah. So the prophecy box, that's work that was up during Freeze, so in February of this year, and that was inspired by Cassandra. Cassandra, she was a prophet, an oracle in Greek mythology. She was a Trojan priestess, and she's known in mythology as a woman whose prophecies were always correct, but the curse that she had was that no one would believe her. So she's always called like a liar or crazy, but she was saying things like, "Hey, the Trojan War is going to happen. This wooden horse isn't a gift from the Greeks. All these soldiers are inside." She predicted lots and lots of things. And when I was, so then I just started looking for other places where Cassandra shows up. And the more I read about her, it was just clear to me that she's a Black woman. And I was kicking myself for not realizing that, like seeing those parallels before, as many times as I've read different parts of Greek mythology and like epic poems. So I was thinking about how to break this curse. And then I've also been thinking, like, what if Cassandra wasn't one person? But I think that there's actually like a tribe of women throughout history that have been Cassandras. Because I know so many times where someone has told me something that turned out to be true, or I've said something and I wasn't believed.
Hmm.
So I've just been like identifying these other oracles throughout history. And when I was imagining breaking her curse, I wanted some kind of exchange, like where you have to offer something in order to get a prophecy that you can choose to believe. So the offering is a confession. So people are asked to anonymously share a time a Black woman told you something that turned out to be true. And I've been listening to some of the audio, and it's so like it's all sorts of things that people will share. Like one that I thought was so lovely, someone said their fourth grade teacher told them about like how important it is to like sit up straight and like how you start your day and how that's something they still believe, like all sorts of things.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I work with this technologist, Marcus McLaughlin, and created an algorithm. And when you actually use the prophecy box, it's like this pink like rectangular prism with a pink phone on top. So you pick up the phone, and then when you hang up, you press a button and you get a prophecy that's printed out from this little thermal printer. And I made sure that anytime we use AI to generate the prophecies, but the algorithm basically makes sure that every prophecy highlights the history of some Black woman that was a Cassandra in history. And it'll tell you, like, hey, you actually need to use energy from Ida B. Wells, or you should trust like your futurist thinking the way Octavia Butler did, and you get like lucky numbers and things like that. So yeah, that's inspired by tech, by mythology,
hmm
by intuitive truths.
Yeah. I would love to give you the opportunity to share one or two or three, however many you want, books that you want to recommend to our community. The Black Ordinary is a resource hub.
Yeah.
And on our website, we have a digital bookshelf where we list different books that podcast guests or different collaborators recommend. And so please share.
Yeah. So I have a couple of books. One, I talk about this book all the time. It's called Ordinary Notes by Christina Sharp. Um, I really, really love her work. Love this book. Um, they're like different kind of like essays, but that use like imagery, poetry, really well done. I especially like the note that's on beauty.
Hmm.
I believe that's note 53, but Ordinary Notes is excellent. Um, Also Black Utopias by Jana Brown.
These are new to me. I gotta check these out. My God.
Oh my goodness. I think you would love both. And I love the Betty Saar cover art on
Yeah,
the book.
yeah.
But she explores Black utopias and like speculative life.
Mhm.
And each chapter is on a different figure that has explored realms of Black utopias. Fictional musicians, artists, Alice Coltrane, Sun Ra. There's a chapter on Lauren Olamina. Um, Sojourner Truth is in the book. That's where I learned that Sojourner Truth was a mystic. Um, re-
What?
yes, yeah, we have to
What?
talk about it. We have to
We
talk about it.
do.
Yeah. I think you would really
Whoa.
like it. It's all I've been talking
Yeah.
about for like a couple of months, and it's inspiring some of the work that I'm working on now.
So we're gonna close it out. Where can people listening or watching, where can they find you? Where can they find your work? How can they interact with your work?
Yeah. Autumn Breon is where I show up online. My website, my Instagram, that's where you can keep up with all the stuff that's coming up and the work that I'm doing.
Is there a place that the prophecy box is going next that people can anticipate?
Oh, there might be. Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
yeah.
So
It
stay
might be
tuned.
showing up. Yeah. Oh, but
But
you can also use the Esoterica hotline. You can text a confession or leave a voicemail with a confession, and you get a prophecy on your phone.
love that. All right, folks. You heard her. Go ahead and send those confessions. I know you got some. So
That's true. Unfortunately, there is not a shortage of confessions to collect from folks. Hopefully, one day we'll have fewer and fewer confessions because people will be believing Black women the first time.
period. Yep. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Black Ordinary podcast. The Black Ordinary is a grassroots platform dedicated to uplifting the collective memories of Black America. Be sure to check out our collective memory database and more resources on our website, theblackordinary.com. For more Black art, Black archives, and Black autonomy, you can follow us on Instagram @The Black Ordinary and subscribe to our YouTube channel @The Black Ordinary. Stay Black and stay blessed. See you soon.